The US President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken have reached out to congratulate Prime Minister Modi for his record win in these elections. We're now joined by Atul Keshap. Ambassador Keshap, who heads the US-India Business Chamber, has had a bigger role, I would say, in transforming the relationship between Washington, Delhi than perhaps any other US diplomat. He is a huge fan of India. He's worked here for years and years and years. And there are few people who actually know about the broader issues and concerns in the relationship than him. Thanks very much for being with us. You would have been looking very closely at these results. It's been a tight election. Do you believe that there would be enough stability going forward for the relationship between India and America to continue on the same trajectory?
Vishnu, great to see you again. Let me pan out a little bit and talk about how India is viewed on the global scene. India is an anchor of stability, socioeconomic, political, economic stability that is the envy of the entire world. And I think that the United States and the people of America look to India as a vital source of responsibility and stability in a deeply unsettled world. So that's the first and most important thing. The second point is that the Indian voter has telegraphed an absolute passion and commitment for democracy that proves that democracy is the birthright of every single human being. And that is a powerful voice in favor of stability on the global scene. So when we look at it through that frame, surely there will be a coalition, and I congratulate Prime Minister Modi and the NDA on a historic third term. That is an amazing accomplishment and indicates long-term stability of the Indian growth trajectory. But this is where we enter an era of constructive coalition, which will hopefully yield the prosperity and the jobs and the GDP growth that all Indians are yearning for.
Constructive coalition is what you're talking about. Hopefully that will be the case. Is it your worry as an India observer that that might be missing? Because it's going to be a parliament which is going to look very different. The opposition has very large numbers. And therefore, in terms of having constructive engagement in parliament, that may not necessarily be the case.
So here's how I view it as an overseas observer. Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that all Indians want their country to become a developed nation. They all want it to be a $25 or $30 trillion GDP economy by mid-century. They all believe in job creation and prosperity and better lives for Indians. And they all believe in the value of foreign direct investment, especially from the United States of America, to help fuel that economic growth. So look, politics is the art of the possible. And the Prime Minister and his coalition will work out what is possible in the Indian Parliament. And he's obviously a very, very practiced and experienced politician. But these are matters for the people of India. I think if you look at the long haul perspective, India has so many wonderful positive attributes: highly skilled workforce, amazing demographics, stability, an absolute anchor of stability in the world, that India can possibly become a developed country by mid-century. It'll be wonderful for Indians. And I think any political leader can build a very strong coalition around that in moving the country forward.
When the Prime Minister was in the United States and there was that landmark agreement which was signed, it was very futuristic in its outlook. High tech is one of the areas which India and America are very, very closely looking at. There's the entire strategic relationship as well. There is nuclear commerce, green energy commerce, technology sharing, education, health. You deal with Indian industry and American industry to try to bring it all together. What really is the future of that relationship?
So our relationship is increasingly based on shared strategic convergence and on trust. Bottom line, our two free and democratic peoples have confidence in one another. And if you look at the amazing skill that your people bring and that our companies bring, this is a match made in heaven between American and Indian industry in terms of innovation on all of the deep tech and future tech and all of the frontier elements of our advanced economies. Look at quantum computing, artificial intelligence, all of the clean hydrogen. I think that the opportunities are limitless because we trust one another. And if you look at our companies, American and Indian, who are members of USIBC, they increasingly look like they are hybrids of one another, that we're not American and Indian, we're American Indian or Indian American. And so the convergence is accelerating because of shared strategic apprehensions and shared strategic convergence based on trust.
The entire Pannun issue, some would suggest, has been not a small hiccup, but perhaps a fairly large hiccup in the trajectory that you're talking about. Do you believe that enough has been done to resolve that concern and that the trajectory of the relationship that you're talking about is back where it needs to be, or was that trajectory never impacted by the concerns on Pannun?
So I've followed the relationship officially or professionally, I should say, for about 20 years. And I said earlier that this particular issue is being dealt with maturity and trust by both sides. And I continue to believe that. If you look at some of the roller coasters of ups and downs in our relationship in the past, we're actually handling this really well, both India and America, Delhi and Washington. And if you look at the vast landscape of the US-India relationship, there are so many areas of convergence, including new areas of convergence. I'll give you just a couple of examples. One is, of course, our joint project with our Arab and Israeli friends to try to ensure the stability of the Middle East amidst great uncertainty. Another, just the other day from the headlines, is the Quad partnership to try to help the people of Papua New Guinea after a terrible natural disaster there. This kind of partnership keeps growing in scope, and problems are always going to happen in any major relationship between two huge countries. But it's how we deal with them that shows our trust. And I think on this issue, we have shown ample trust in one another, and we will work through it as friends do, and we'll keep focusing on the positive areas of convergence.
You know, Ambassador Keshap, some would suggest that the basis of the relationship between America and India are our people in America, people in India. But they actually engage with each other through a visa. And there's been a nightmare situation for many Indians trying to get a visa to go to the US. I know there have been so many efforts to try and sort that out, but even now it's a constant problem. People from India want to travel to America. It's just not happening fast enough. I think everybody agrees that it can happen faster. What needs to be done?
So I'll give full credit to the American Embassy and to all of the consulates around India for working very hard to address the visa backlog. But for me, this is a couple of things. Number one, it's an enormous good news story because unlike the demand for visas coming out of China, for instance, the demand for visas out of India has just skyrocketed after the pandemic. Yep. And it reflects the great confidence that your people have in America and our future prosperity. And it reflects our great desire to partner with the people of India. So that's the good news story. I think what I would say is that the people at the embassy, which I used to lead, and the consulates are working very hard within the constraints of law and policy. And my respectful suggestion, and that of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, my employer, has been to advocate to the United States Congress, which makes the laws of our land, to rationalize the visa processing, especially in terms of the legal requirements that are imposed upon the various consulates, to leverage technology to make it easier for our friends to come and have legitimate, lawful purposes of visits to the United States, including for business, for education, for tourism, for family visits. And so we can look in our system at how to rationalize that. But until the Congress and the executive branch come to an agreement on innovation on visa processing, our embassies can only do so much. And there are finite limits to how many visas they can process, given the amount of diplomats they have on the ground, the ability to move people through. So I appreciate the patience of the people of India. I know the embassy has been working very hard, particularly on student visas, given how important those are for the future of your children and, of course, for our prosperity and happiness as nations. But this is tough without structural changes in how we do visas. And a lot of that stems, frankly, from security concerns globally imposed after 9/11.
All right, Ambassador Keshap, thank you very much for joining us.